This happened a couple of months ago, and I'm finally feeling safe alone again. It was around 1:30 p.m. when my dog started barking for me to take him outside. I put on his leash and walked outside my first floor apartment, leaving the door unlocked behind me like I had done a million times before. Seriously, I never thought twice about it, as I live in a really safe neighborhood in an extremely safe, almost boring town. In my 27 years of living here, nothing had ever tested that sense of security before. My dog is 15, so he moves a little slow and really loves taking his time sniffing around. He'll usually stop and pee 3 different times, and that day was no different. But suddenly, a big white truck filled with lawn equipment slowed down in front of me.
Make sure you pick up after your dog.
I looked up and saw a man in his late 40s or so, wearing polarized sunglasses and a bandana around his lower mouth, neck. He just peed. I responded with a little bit of attitude, like, thanks, I got this, now drive away. I looked up again, and he gave me a wink and lowered his bandana to blow me a kiss before he drove off. He instantly made me feel uncomfortable, but as a young Hispanic female, I had been used to older Hispanic men being inappropriate and making me feel like that for years. It's just a sad reality, so once again, I thought nothing of it. I was walking back to my apartment when a woman came out of her apartment in the next building over and stood on her patio, motioning for me to come to her. Now, I've never met this lady. I had seen her around the complex, and she seemed nice enough, but ultimately, I didn't know this woman. I watched Dateline. I'm not going up on her patio. I asked her what she wanted, and she just insisted I go over there so she could tell me. I told her I needed to bring my dog back inside, but maybe I could help her from outside where I was if she told me. Next thing I know, this woman is freaking running towards me. I pick up my dog, ready to run home myself, and then she stopped, probably 5 feet away from me. Please, listen to me. A man walked into your apartment while you were walking your dog. I think he was one of the mowers. I was sitting in my car when I saw him walk in, and I know you live there alone. I called 911. They're on their way. I could feel my face burning as I tried to process what I just heard. I watched the man I had talked to drive away. I didn't see his truck anywhere. How could that be possible? What I didn't realize was that while I was talking to him, he had positioned his truck right in the line of sight of my apartment. I couldn't see my door, so I was distracted and looking away, while another man walked in. If my neighbor hadn't happened to be sitting in her car on the phone, I would have walked into my apartment, completely unaware that someone would be inside waiting to do God knows what. I'm so thankful she was so observant, even prior to the incident, because she knew there shouldn't be anyone else in that apartment and had a gut feeling something was wrong. The police arrived not even 5 minutes later and arrested the guy. He said that he had my permission to use the restroom, which was obviously not true. Since my door was unlocked and we can't prove for sure what his intentions were when he entered, he was only charged with trespassing. That's a misdemeanor in my state, and he did no jail time, which obviously freaked me out because this guy knew where I lived. The man driving the truck technically did nothing wrong, but it's so scary to think that they might have been working together. I stayed with my parents until we were able to find a legal loophole to get out of my lease and move me out of that apartment. I moved into a house with an old friend and got a ring system installed that same day. My dog has a backyard now, my dad mows the lawn for us, and I still get coffee with the neighbor who called the cops for me. But creepy landscaper who walked into my apartment while I was walking my dog? Let's not meet. This is something that happened to my family and I in 2007 or so. I was 10 years old then. My parents' house is quite big. It has 2 floors and is situated in a residential neighborhood just outside of a big city. It's an upper class, very chill, and incredibly boring neighborhood, but pretty safe. We weren't upper class though, just that my parents were crazy enough to start building a house with their own hands without hiring professionals, because we couldn't afford it basically. Also, sorry if I sound weird. English isn't my first language. Okay, back to the story. One night before going to bed, my dad went to check if the front door was locked, but he must have been very tired that night because instead of locking it, he unlocked it. At that time, my grandma was living with us, and her bedroom was the one on the ground floor. My sister and I, as well as my parents, had our bedrooms upstairs. As you walk through the front door, you step into the hallway, which leads to my grandma's bedroom on the left, and also the kitchen next to it. If you make a right, you walk into the living room, where you can go up the stairs onto the other floors. To get into the living room, you have to take a big step downward, like you'd go down the stairs, but there is only one step. I hope you guys can understand what I'm talking about. Sorry, I'm trying. In the middle of the night, my grandma hears a loud bang. She gets out of her bedroom and looks around to see what happened. No one else heard this. At first, she couldn't see much because the only source of light was the moonlight shining through the windows. The light switch was all the way across the living room, right next to the staircase, so she had to walk through the living room to turn the lights on. For some reason, she didn't turn the lights on and decided to walk up to the couch that was in our living room because she could see there was someone laying on it, but she couldn't figure out who it was. The lights were off. She thought my mom must have had an argument with Dad, and she came downstairs to sleep on the couch. It wasn't my mom. It was a stranger. The loud bang she heard was this person falling off that step that led into the living room. You wouldn't expect it to be there if you just think it's flat ground, so they fell pretty bad. It just didn't cross her mind that it could be someone who broke into our home. Who breaks into someone's house and decides to sleep on the couch? It's so random. So my grandma goes up to the person, touches them gently, and asks what's going on. Why is she sleeping there and not in her room, thinking she was talking to her daughter, my mom. The intruder is a woman around her 50s. She mumbles some random words, and Grandma realizes immediately that the woman trying to sleep on the couch wasn't my mom. She also reeked of alcohol. At that point, she goes upstairs to my parents' bedroom and tells them that there's a stranger sleeping on the couch in the living room. My parents freak out, and my dad proceeds to take his sword off the wall. Yeah, he had a sword he used to take good care of like it was his baby, and he kept it hung on one of the walls upstairs. My mom was hanging on to my dad from behind as he slowly walked downstairs with the sword in his hands. He tapped the woman with the sword while she was still laying there. She was drunk out of her mind, shouting at her and asking what she was doing in our house. She was barefoot, and it was winter at that time, so she walked in the snow without any shoes. At this point, my dad realizes that it's just a homeless person seeking shelter, as it was very cold outside, and she wasn't properly dressed for it. She was scared and was begging my dad not to hurt her. They eventually called the police, and they took her with them. I don't know what happened to her after that, if she was arrested or not, but we never saw her again. My sister and I slept through all this mess, which is a bit concerning, and our parents told us what happened the next morning. It was a bit unnerving, thinking that if my grandma wouldn't have heard that loud bang, who knows what this woman would have done while we were all sleeping. So, about 2 years ago, I, 16 female, at the time 14, was home with my mom. It was just us two. Now, my mom at the time was addicted to drugs and alcohol and was in an essentially drug-induced coma. Nothing could wake her up. I had decided to take a bath while she slept. My bathroom door was locked, as was my mother's bedroom door, as she seemed to think we didn't know about her addictions and kept it locked so we didn't find out, and the house was silent. I had only been in the bath about a half an hour before I heard my front door open. I assumed it was my eldest sister coming back from work, as no one else would just walk in, but I wanted to be sure, so I texted her. Immediately, I got a worried text saying that, no, she wasn't home. Why? Was someone there? I froze. I could hear footsteps. Now, our house was small, 1 story, and from the front door to the bathroom door was only a small living room. I heard a weird scraping noise coming up the hallway to the bathroom. I heard the scraping stop outside of the bathroom door, and then someone grabbed the doorknob and kept turning it very slowly, side to side, for about a minute. The entire time, I was silent, frozen still, and shaking like a leaf. I wanted to call my mom and ask if it was her, but I didn't want whoever it was to hear the sound and get to my mom. After a while, I didn't hear anything. I stayed in the bath for what I think was an hour until I heard the front door open and click shut, softly. I still stayed in the bath long after the water had gone cold until I heard my sister come in and yell if I was here and if I was okay and why was the door unlocked. I got out of the bath and heard her gasp before I had come out. But when I did, I swear my blood went cold. There was a line spanning the wall of the hallway where the paint had been cut, like someone had trailed something sharp along the wall. Currently, the theory is that the scraping noise I heard was someone trailing a knife on the wall.